However, on occasion, you can get, if you get a mind flayer that infects a dragon with a tadpole.
Excuse me?
It's a brain stealer dragon.
Excuse me? Oh.
That's available to you, friends.
Oh my god.
You can have that.
Oh, that is terrifying.
Yep. Whenever you want, you can have a brain stealer dragon. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Hard pass.
That is so wild. That is so wild. Although it does look like an evil Mr. Snuffleupagus, though.
Oh, I see the one you're looking at. 100% those big eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, bird.
No one believes I'm real till I eat their brain.
Yeah, and they can't tell anyone. That's another thing, kids. You guys, like, now you don't remember that at the time Snuffy really was Big Bird's invisible friend for a long time. I
always forget that's not terminology anymore. Yeah.
Well, he wasn't invisible. Just no one saw him. Yeah. Like he'd always he was like Superman and Clark Kent. Like he'd roll up, talk to Big Bird, and leave, and then people be like, "Who are you talking to?" He's like, "Mr. Snuffleupagus." Oh, Bird.
Good afternoon and welcome to Idle Insights. My name is Dylan and I am coming to you live from the isolated confines of my home on Vancouver Island in the Pacific Northwest. I have a very special guest joining me today, but first I would like to do a shout out and a thank you to our moderator and co-producer Sasha. And of course, a huge thanks to Dungeons & Dragons for hosting us on the official D&D Twitch. It is and will always be an honor to be here. Now my guest today is a professional pretender whom you might recognize from the Black Dice Society, which broadcasts Thursdays on the D&D channels at 4 p.m. Pacific, or you may recognize him from our recently completed Idle Champions Presents. It is also very likely that you know him from his incredible array of voice work, which where he has played countless characters in BioWare RPGs, including everyone from Vogel and the Vast and Baloth the Entertainer, and of course Commander Shepard, which reminds me, actually, the Legendary edition of Mass Effect, although Legendary Addiction wouldn't be wrong. The Legendary Edition of Mass Effect is coming soon, and I know I'm personally excited to jump back into that adventure, despite having done literally everything in the games and all the DLC already more than once. But it looks so good in HD. Please welcome Mark Meer to the show.
Hello.
Oh! It turned into a black box. Refresh. Uh-oh. All right, I'm gonna fix this. I know how I'm gonna fix it. The benefits of having done this a million times. There we go.
Oh, there we are.
Yeah.
Is it me? Am I here?
Yes,
it's
you're
me.
here.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello, Dylan. Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. It's always fun to get to talk to people who do cool stuff, and you do lots of cool stuff.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. I gotta say, it's been very exciting. Even though I haven't been able to watch it as much as I'd like, it's been very exciting to see you getting to pull the double duty for Black Dice Society. Which I'm curious. I guess you would have known going in that you were also playing another character who gets some spotlight outside the main adventure a bit, but that wasn't something that the rest of the cast knew about, is it?
No, that was our little epilogues were a surprise for the rest of the cast. I, of course, knew because we, due to the needs of costume and whatnot, we did pre-tape our little epilogues for that. And for those who don't know, I play Aslan Rex, who is one of the Dark Lords of Ravenloft, alongside Jason Carl as Strahd von Zarovich.
Yeah, it was. It looks like you two are having a lot of fun just being catty with each other.
We really are, yeah, because B. Dave, essentially our dungeon master, Mr. B. Dave Walters, just sort of set us up and let us go, and essentially just let us snipe at each other for a while, and every now and then would step in and go, okay, well, we'll call it there, and then back to sniping. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to doing more of them.
Yeah. You guys have episode 3 or 4 tonight.
This is officially our episode 3. Of course, we did have a little preview episode at GaryCon as well.
That always gets me. Some that you did a special, and then it's like I mentally count that in. That's very, very cool.
So yes, yeah, I guess this will be the 4th time that the Black Dice Society has convened. What's episode 3?
That's exciting. Because you've been on a few of these shows now, and I've also seen you do cameos on LA by Night, I think it was, and how is the preparation different for each of the shows? Because especially with this one, it seems like there's a pretty specific tone you guys are trying to hit with each episode.
Well, certainly, yeah. This is a Ravenloft game, of course. So at the outset, B. Dave sort of let us all know that, of course, we're not going to stifle humor completely, but it is a horror game. And so we want maybe not constant wisecracks and whatnot. So I've been doing my best to restrain myself. And it's been easy because he's been setting the stage so beautifully. And it does have that very Ravenloft sense of foreboding and dread. Really, it is the domains of dread, after all.
So does that mean that actually no, I that's a different question. I can't. I'm not going to ask anybody to break NDAs. I will not break any NDAs.
Yeah,
I know. And everybody has them with different things, and I'm like, no, can't ask that.
Actually, I have some NDAs with Idle Champions, so I can probably break those if you give me permission.
Oh no, I don't want to get in trouble. You wouldn't get in trouble. I would. Tell me about your, I guess, experience with Ravenloft, because I know you've been playing D&D for a while, and you've on many occasions demonstrated a knowledge of D&D that goes back many editions. And I'm curious what your history with the Ravenloft setting is like.
Well, I played the original module when it came out back in the 80s. And as I recall, it was quite a large group that went through, and it was a real meat grinder. We were just losing people left and right. And Ravenloft has always been the the setting or the adventure that makes hardened, seasoned heroes suddenly quake in their boots because it introduces the unknown again. I think Todd was actually talking about it when he covered the new book, the Ravenloft book that's coming out. The fact that you took an enemy that was very, very familiar to seasoned players, the zombie, and in that module, suddenly zombies became new and exciting and terrifying because they suddenly had this new ability to have their arms hacked off, and then the arms would attack you individually. And that sort of feel of putting players and characters on their back feet and suddenly becoming a little more cautious when you're going into the scary castle. That's what Ravenloft is really all about. So of course, as I say, I played the initial module, and subsequently, it was pretty much always my favorite setting, especially once they started expanding beyond Barovia, beyond Strahd himself. The Gazetteers were some of my favorite publications from, I guess that would have been 3rd edition that stuff started coming out. And for a long time, that was basically almost all the D&D product that I bought was Ravenloft centric. And certainly, yeah, I just kept going until I had pretty much everything that had been published with the Ravenloft name on it. And so I was very excited when in 5th edition they brought out Curse of Strahd, and even more excited now that they seem to be opening the doors of Ravenloft once more, and the mists are beckoning.
Yeah, I am very, very excited for Van Richten's guide in a way that I haven't been for. I mean, I get excited for all the new adventures because I'm like, ooh, something new. But I gotta say, when you know it's a Ravenloft thing, it's a special kind of like, all right, oh yeah, what do you got? What new terrors, monsters, settings, villains, etc. And so. You've grabbed all this Ravenloft stuff. Did you also grab because I know they published a bunch of Ravenloft novels. I know there's I Strahd. Have you digested all that stuff too?
Yeah, I read the Ravenloft books when they came out as well, and it was largely I sort of went to the books last because after I bought every gaming material that had Ravenloft on it, and no new Ravenloft stuff was coming out, it's like I need that Ravenloft itch scratched. So yeah, I picked up the books as well, and if there had been if I had a D&D wish list, and we all have D&D wish lists, but at the very top of it was bring back Ravenloft. And now that has been fulfilled, or will be shortly.
Yeah, I'm very excited to. I think the thing that most excited me when B-Dave first mentioned the show was exploring the domains of Dread. I'm like, more than one place, excellent, because they're all so horrible.
Strahd, of course, is fantastic, and Barovia is fantastic.
Oh yeah,
there is so much more to Ravenloft than that.
Yeah, that's very cool. And you know what? I was gonna ask you questions about the where did with Brother Uriah, do you have a planned trajectory for the character, or are you just gonna roll with it the whole time?
Oh, rolling with it and seeing where I certainly know where he comes from, and as has been mentioned in the stream, he's from Darkon, which was always one of my favorite domains, and Aslan Rex, who I get to play, was always one of my favorite Dark Lords. So yeah, that's in fact. So B-Dave told me that I was one of the first people that he called, and luckily I had made through conversation, and I had made my love of Ravenloft well known to him, and so he said that I was one of the first people he called when this project crossed his table.
That's awesome. And also, a love of Ravenloft, and I'm sure your collection of Lich and other masks doesn't hurt. Especially when it comes to playing. Did you already have the Aslan mask?
Yes, that mask in particular has served me well in a number of different roles, including as part of Vecna's retinue at Gen Con one year. Dustin Fletcher and Devin Henderson from D4 Dustin was Vecna, and Devin was a Death Knight, and I was a Lich Priest of Vecna. And had, of course, the hand and the eye with me, so yes, that it is a mask that has played, as I say, a few roles, and I have many more masks as well.
I'm curious actually, because it seems like you're always posting new masks. How many masks do you have?
Let's see. I think with my newest acquisitions, I'm probably up to around 15 or so, and my wife has a few as well. There's a company down in Louisiana called Composite Effects that a lot of our masks, most of our masks actually come from, and I've been a big fan of theirs for many years. They mostly do work for the professional haunted house industry, and they do great work. And we've actually been down, we've toured their studio and whatnot. So yeah, looking in my house, you'd see quite a number of masks.
Do they have like a bust of your head that they use? They're like, oh, Mark needs another mask, and they just like immediately start working on it, or
well, most of the masks that I bought from them are just their off the rack stuff, and you see how well they move and fit, and that's just like, you know, their retail versions. Though they did very kindly make me a custom mask from Mass Effect, one of the Vorcha, which is an alien race. Yeah, so I don't just play Shepard in Mass Effect. There's a few alien races that I play all of, and one of those races is the Vorcha, which you may have seen. They've got sort of like big pointy teeth and a big wide grin and sort of pointy heads. And they custom made me a Vorcha mask, which is just really a thing of beauty. They didn't actually do a life cast for that. They did the thing where I sit in the center of a circle of cameras, and then they take pictures of my face from all different angles. So they do it more, it's sort of a virtual life cast, I guess.
Yeah, that technology is wild to me. Every time I see stuff related to it, it's like you go and you stand in a thing, and then you come out of it, you step out, and they've got a 3D model of you. Yeah, that's pretty neat. Do you have when it comes to playing, because it's interesting, I guess what I'm gonna get towards is I don't often get to see in a TRPG show where the villain is being played by somebody other than the DM, or a villain is being played by somebody other than the DM. Do you have a specific direction from B-Dave on how to approach that? Or are you and Jason Carl just like, oh, we're going to have fun, and then maybe we'll mess with some players? Like, how does that fit in?
Well, B-Dave gives us a lot of freedom in that he doesn't say these are the points you have to hit or anything like that. As I say, between Aslan and Strahd, it's more... there's an advantage to role-playing a couple of characters who have such a long and established history, and such a history of hating each other. But at the same time, they're both relatively aristocratic villains, so it's not, they don't just attack each other immediately. It's more snide remarks and cutting comments, that sort of thing. So I'm able to play Aslan without necessarily knowing all the details of the plot, and in fact I don't. I'm largely going off my admittedly extensive knowledge of Aslan and his history and whatnot, and the history that he shares with Strahd von Zarovich.
Yeah, it looks fun. And one of the things you can tell right away is that, especially when comparing it to other things, is that as soon as you watch it, you can tell that both you and Jason Carl know your subject matter really well, and so it really informs the banter. You can definitely feel the mutual distaste for each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's been,
and that only I should mention that only applies to the characters, because I think Jason is awesome.
I haven't met Jason. I don't know. He seems scary.
I suppose, yeah. He's a fantastic storyteller for Vampire. I will tell you that. I've had the great pleasure of getting to be an NPC in his games, and he's masterful.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about both his work on LA by Night and your cameos as I'm forgetting the character's name, but going and stirring up trouble on a show looks like fun.
I believe you're referring to Chaz Price, who is actually Nellie's sire. And that was a great experience, because Jason, I was in LA and was guesting on the show, and Jason suggested, he basically provided me with the character, Chaz Price, who's Nellie's sire. And in those scenarios, he was essentially giving me objectives and information that I should get out to the characters, and but gave me a lot of freedom just to make Chaz my own. And Chaz became popular enough. Well, I wouldn't say popular. He became the character that people loved to hate. So I did a couple of subsequent appearances, and then they ended up bringing me in for the season finale. So Jazz got to be the big bad for the season ender, and spoilers for those who haven't seen it yet. But yes, he did. It's a few years old, so I think I can say he did meet his final death, and I would not change a thing because it was an excellent death, and thematically it worked out great because Nellie, of course, got to deliver the final blow.
Is that something that you think about a lot in terms of characters that you get to play? Like, do you get excited for that epic final death, or is it just kind of like what's that like for you?
Oh, certainly. Like as I say, I was delighted the way that it worked out on LA by Night. Obviously, when you're playing an RPG, a lot of things are going to be determined by the dice rolls, so you just sort of have to go with them and interpret those as they go. But sometimes it all works out perfectly.
So speaking of things working out perfectly, Mass Effect Legendary Edition. I think at this point, like, Mass Effect came out a decade ago now, right? Like, it's...
Mm-hmm.
I remember thinking that Mass Effect 2 was the best game I'd played between, like, 2000 and 2010 or something, because I think it came out in 2009. I'm going to have to look that up.
It was, I believe, 2010. 2010. So, yeah, it's been over 10 years now. I think next year will be the 10th anniversary of the third in the trilogy, Mass Effect 3. So yeah, it's been about a decade, more than a decade since the first Mass Effect came out, and of course people were very excited for the possibility of a remaster, and I believe it was just announced last November 7th on N7 Day that we were officially getting this remaster. So yeah, people have been looking forward to this for quite a while.
So when it comes to your voice work for it, do you have to re-record anything for the remaster, or they've already got all that audio and you just get to like sit back and be like, hey, here it is again?
Well, we're probably into that aforementioned NDA territory. For that sort of thing.
Well, fair enough.
But I mean, they've already put out, as you can see, the graphics have undergone a bit of a sprucing up, as they say,
mm-hmm.
and BioWare has been releasing a number of those actually just this week.
Yeah, I gotta say, it was kind of weird. You can tell that a game really had an impact on you by how you react to it when it comes around again, when it gets a remaster or anything like that. Like thinking first to when Final Fantasy VII Remake came out last year, and kind of diving back into a world that you remember, but it's been a while since you've seen it. And just kind of like how it can have a surprising impact on you. And then when they released one of the graphic comparison trailers where they had all the characters they did a really brilliant job of doing a composite of like some of their lines of dialogue that very much describe who they are as the characters that you meet in the series, while also showing the graphical changes between the editions for them. And I was surprised by how moving it was to see many of those characters brought back to life, I guess. With the upgrades.
Yeah, and I'd say Mass Effect is really primed for that because it was a game where people really made strong emotional connections to like the NPCs, to the players themselves. Shepard is a unique character in that there's no set Commander Shepard. To a large extent, Shepard is a canvas that the player gets to paint their character on. They get to build the sort of Shepard that they want. But it was one of the first times where you had a PC that was fully voiced. And so that really helped the player feel that they were embodied in the game. So both Jennifer Hale, who voiced the female Commander Shepard, and myself have had fans tell us so many times that they'd forged such an emotional connection with the game, with the characters that they met, with all the crew. So yeah, I think that you're going to be seeing that with this remaster as well.
Yeah, I very distinctly remember playing through the second one, and mild story spoilers for a game that came out almost 12 years ago. But there's a point in it where your crew basically gets kidnapped. They get wiped out or kidnapped. And you come back to an empty ship. And I remember being so livid in that moment that I'm like, I'm starting the last mission right now. I'm doing this. Like, which is obviously the reaction that they're intending to elicit with the narrative there. But I mean, it works. You spend a lot of time chatting and communicating with characters and feeling like you have ownership over your PC in it. That it's a much different connection than just watching it.
Yeah, just so you don't feel bad, the first time that I did the final mission of Mass Effect 2, I lost. It was nearly a total party kill. It was I lost a lot of characters. I didn't save that one. I went back and tried to do better myself.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I may have done the exact same thing. I like lost a few. I'm like, no, I'm playing through. I must save everyone. Especially since I'm like, if they when they make another one, I want some of these characters to still be alive. Which again, they did a really great job of, I guess, rewarding you for the experience that you'd put in the previous ones. And if you'd played a character all the way through, then you saved Erdnot Rex, and there he is at the very end, thanking you for all the glorious battles he's been able to participate in because of you, and stuff like that. It was pretty great. When you do work for games like that, is it just you and the studio directors and the everybody in a booth, or do you get to have scenes where you do them with people?
For those games, we tend to be completely separate. However, BioWare does have a system where they play the other performer's performance in your headset. That's assuming that they've already recorded. So if you go first in a scene, you're sort of setting the tone, and if you go subsequently, then you have the advantage of having everyone else's lines being fired essentially as you do the scene. So, for example, the scene that I have with Keith David as Anderson, his death scene, I had his performance. I was able to listen to it. Jennifer as well, she had it, and it does help quite a bit because you're not just acting into a vacuum.
That's super cool. Yeah, and Keith David has such a voice too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, even though
it's pretty. I mean, I was very I'd never necessarily know what we were recording from day to day, but you go into the booth and you put on your headset and suddenly it's like, oh, Keith David's in my headset. Oh, Martin Sheen's in my headset. So
yeah.
And then of course subsequently at the end, I guess, of Mass Effect 3, both Jennifer and I got to meet Martin Sheen at a studio in LA when he was recording his final Elusive Man scene.
Cool.
So that was amazing.
Yeah, I gotta say, definitely, such a good series of games. I could talk about them too much. I am curious because as you go through the game and there are dialogue choices, and there's essentially, because the Paragon choices go from like lawful good to chaotic evil with some middle ground one. What's that like for you? Do you go in one day and it's like you have a dialogue tree that you're going to go through, and they're like, all right, now be a jerk. All right, now you have to be the good guy. Like, what's that like?
Well, usually we would do one thread. So it's just like, here's the Paragon thread. We'll follow that through to the end in a given scene, and then we'd go back to the beginning. It's like, okay, here's the Renegade thread. We go through that way. And there are some lines that are common to both. So that was actually one of the tricky parts. You had to be careful, and our directors helped tremendously with this. You had to be careful not to go too extreme in your choices, because someone might not be playing pure Renegon or pure Paragon or pure Renegade.
Yeah.
And so you didn't want to sound like you were having wild mood swings as you bounced back and forth between those choices. Huh. It was... I would also say that it's not necessarily from lawful good to chaotic evil, because even at his or her most renegade-y, Commander Shepard is ultimately still saving the galaxy.
Yeah, still a savior of humanity. That's true.
They might just be being like a bit of a jerk about it. So,
yeah.
It's throwing the odd person out a window.
A lot of the time it felt more like you had the heroic option or the aggressively heroic option. seemed to be where it went. Yeah, it's like, they can die, they're not human, kind of thing, or whatever.
I always thought of it sort of like Boy Scout or loose cannon.
Yeah. Absolutely. Do you have a most memorable sequence for you in terms of the dialogues, or because there's quite a few good Shepard speeches throughout that trilogy? Is there one that stands out in particular for you?
I go back to the Anderson death scene. That one was really powerful, and Jennifer has said the same. Like that was really quite a moving scene. And in fact, the entirety, I'd say, of the Citadel DLC, that was just a joy from start to finish, because there were like a lot of little in jokes and fan service moments, and some of them quite hilarious, but there were also poignant moments. And that line that Shepard says, I think in response to, good times, weren't they, Shepard? And Shepard just says the best. I think that was probably almost the very last thing I ever recorded for Mass Effect. So yeah,
Oh, wow.
that was a fun one to go out on.
Cool. Now I'm curious, are there any random aliens that you voiced in that people never recognized that it was you?
Some people are still super, it's been talked about a lot in interviews and stuff, but some people are still surprised to find out that I did Blasto, for example, and who started off as sort of an audio Easter egg gag and then just became popular enough that he ended up in the game, in the Citadel DLC. And of course, I mentioned like the Vorcha and the other Hanar and things like that. And there are like a few random characters that haven't necessarily been spotlighted much. I know there's one part where both Jennifer and I play a couple of random human mercs that are just about to get killed by Shepard. There was a scene, another merc scene where I'm essentially playing a mercenary who's taken one of the doctors hostage, and basically Shepard bursts into the room, and I'm like, okay, no move, and then I shoot myself in the head. So that was fun. That Blasto scene, of course, that I mentioned before. So I'm playing Shepard and Blasto, but of course there's also a Vorcha in that scene. So I'm playing all three of those characters talking to myself.
But I assume you don't record all of them at the same time.
No, we would tend to record Shepard first, and then record anything that would be slightly more vocally challenging right at the end of the week or the end of the day, just so my next Shepard line wouldn't sound a bit raspy.
Yeah, that's something that Jason Charles Miller was talking to me about the other day. It never really occurred to me because I don't sing and don't have a voice acting career. But he was talking about when he voices Optimus Prime for he did it for World of Battleships, I think, or something. They did a Transformers thing, and he was Optimus Prime in it. He's like he has to do that voice first thing in the morning, and that's his window for doing it, like for a period of time. And when he's doing other voices, he had specific times a day that they just kind of fit in better depending on where his vocal cords were at, which I thought was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I say, well, the Vorcha in particular, I didn't employ any technique that preserved my vocal cords. I was just screaming and screeching with a mouth half full of water. So yeah, they would tend to save that for that would be like late Friday. That's we've got a half hour left. Let's do those Vorcha lines we needed for the week.
And I'm very curious because I don't know offhand how many lines of dialogue are in a game like Mass Effect, or
a lot,
especially in the subsequent ones, since I guess each branching path would increase the number of things you need to put into it. How long does it take? How long does it take to record your, just say Commander Shepard for it? Like, how much time is spent in the studio doing that?
Months and months. And as you mentioned, with each subsequent game, it became longer because you had to cover all the branching dialogue possibilities. So in the very first game, we were still using paper scripts at that point. And, at the end of the week, there'd be a stack like this in the recycling bin. And thankfully, we moved on to just using iPads and virtual scripts for subsequent ones. So I'm sure we saved quite a few forests.
That's cool. Yeah, I was just thinking about even with Idle Champions, which you've also done a lot of the dialogue in at this point. We have 2 novels worth of lines in the game at this point, which is pretty crazy. It adds up.
It does. It really does. And again, those were just my lines. So
yeah. It was. I thought you and Christina did a really awesome job of that. I'd love to take it a step further.
Oh, you're talking on improvised
improvised champions. Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. That was certainly fun. And also Idle Champions Presents. That was great to actually get to play Baloth and in a dice rolling sense.
I'm not gonna lie. So it's funny because even though I helped to work on that, I never got to sit down and enjoy it because it's on Mondays. I take care of my daughter while my wife is doing stuff. So I was taking care of her and listening to it in my headphones. And I every time that Balos is like, "Why don't we just kill them?" always made me happy to hear.
Well, I thought Baloth was actually restraining himself quite a bit because technically he's chaotic evil, and Yeah, so I had to at least give some lip service to the fact that, while his first instinct would just be, well, kill them all. What's the problem, you guys? Oh, you're all good, aren't you? Fine.
Yeah, I figure, he's hung out with Ariza enough that he's somewhat on his best behavior. But if the entire party turned around, I don't know what happened. This village lit on fire. It's crazy.
Yeah, he never had the opportunity to just to go wild. But we'll see on subsequent games. How many? Actually, I'll ask you. How many? Shall we say non-good characters are represented in Idle Champions? I think almost all of them tend to be good aligned.
Well, I gotta say, chaotic good is a really popular alignment. It is. There's a bit of a running gag at Codename in that we're really fortunate that we get to work with so many awesome people on characters in the game, and we try to work on in instances like with Baloth where we're like, well, we know Mark, like, let's work with Mark on Baloth because Mark brought Baloth to life. And so we always sit down in these conference calls, and you've been in these calls where we'll have like our art director and maybe one or two more artists, like the ones who are going to do the equipment and animate the character and such. And then you have Chris Dupuis, our live services manager, who's going to like plan the initial design of the character. You might also have Justin, who does a lot of the hard design and putting the numbers implementation in order for balancing and stuff. And then you'll have either Clive or myself or some combination of marketing folks. And so the call ends up getting kind of big. And we go through a very similar list of questions each time, trying to distill down like, who is this character? Because generally who we're talking to knows the character much better than we do, and is probably possibly even the authority on the subject. And we spend all this time going through the character. And I gotta say, when we work with people who have live shows, 9 times out of 10, what's your alignment? Chaotic good. So on our end, it's just kind of like, what do you think the odds are that this such and such a character is going to be chaotic good? and like they often are, and it's not to really to I don't mean that to be insulting towards people picking that alignment, because I think it's a very fun alignment to play.
A lot of my character when I was younger, that was sort of my go-to, was because chaotic good. It's like it's the Han Solo alignment. It's like,
absolutely.
Hey, yeah, of course, yeah. I'm a nice guy, but I'm not a stick in the mud.
And we all want to be Han Solo.
Yes, exactly.
We all want to shoot Greedo first. And
see, you can be a good guy, but you can still shoot Greedo first. That's why, I guess.
Yeah. And so, but we have made strides when it comes to evil champions. I think we're probably maybe a third of them, a little over a third.
Okay, so there's Baloth, obviously, like Archon and all of his
Archon, Torgar, and Krull are all evil. Artemis and Trary is evil.
Artemis, of course, yeah.
A number of our kobolds are evil because the default alignment of kobolds in the book is evil. I think we might even be at the point where we have evil characters in every slot.
Okay. So you can do the all evil party if you want to.
You can, yeah. So we have a character that it's funny actually. We make a lot of them because we work with so many people who make good characters that we're like, to offset this, when we make a character, they have to be evil. And so we've made a Yuan T Circle of the Spores druid who's evil to be a healer. Korth, who's a dragonborn gladiator, is evil. And who else did we make? There's Baloth. I never changed Baloth out of his Davy Jones inspired outfit.
How are things coming on the red panda skins, by the way?
That would be breaking an NDA.
I see. Well, then I won't ask you.
Yeah.
I was completely joking. Even the mere possibility that there might actually be red panda skins is delightful to me.
I will confirm that there is definitely a possibility that there can be red panda skins, but it's
fantastic.
That's one of the biggest challenges I find is that, especially with Idle Champions Presents, is that you guys did so many awesome things in such a short period of time, but it takes a lot of lead time for us to make some of these things.
Of course, yeah.
So
for us, it's as easy as just saying, "I cast this illusion."
Yeah. I wear a legally distinct outfit that resembles David Bowie's outfit from Labyrinth, and it's like, oh, well, I mean, we all know what it looks like, but
it's. But how do we make that work? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at this point, we just let Luke make the comic, right? Because he did an amazing job of, God, 6 or 7 of them. He did quite a few.
Oh
of them.
yes. Yeah, and speaking of illusions, he just drew a cartoon of that ridiculous illusion that I, just spouted off, which was, I think it was a dozen red pandas in top hats on unicycles waving around pork chops and
Different
strings
types of meat. Yeah. That was but the beauty of a scene like that is that, especially when it comes to collaborating with an artist like Luke, is I can either send him the Twitch clip. I'm like, do this. can you make this one? Or he comes to me and he's like, I want to do this, and he, like that's the last comic being all the pandas, and then Baloth panda and Ariza panda are roaring at each other really cutely. That was all Luke. Yeah. The only downside, it was funny because Christina brought it up when I was asking everybody for feedback on it, is that she had hoped that her red panda would be in the red panda outfit, and the only worry was that when we did it, it's like, okay, if they're not in their default outfits, then it looks really random to somebody who looks at it and maybe didn't watch the show. Because is that a red panda in a strawberry dress? Who is that? They're not going to know that it's Havilar's outfit for 2 episodes of a show, So
right, yeah, yes, but I do recall, Ariza was a red panda wearing a red panda onesie. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, Christina just seemed to actually have just a red panda onesie handy for the episode, which was totally unexpected. But that was.
I apologize. I apologize because I did not have a David Bowie costume ready to go.
I'm a little surprised. I figured you might just have one in a trunk behind you.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I've got lots of costumes at my house. So, I mean, if I'd been smart, I would have just said Baloth is wearing a costume that I easily have access to, but I didn't.
Yeah, and just duck down and then pop back up. See? There you
go.
Yeah.
Baloth is wearing a red skull half mask that's behind me on the wall. Yeah. That kind of thing.
But no, Idle Champions Presents was a lot of fun to put together. I look forward to being able to do it again. I don't have anything I can announce on it yet. But yeah, that was a blast.
And also, you guys gave me my first opportunity to actually roll dice with Luke Gygax. I'd met Luke before several times. Like, we'd met at D&D Live a few times, and so we knew each other and we were Facebook friends. But I'd never actually played a game of D&D with him. So thank you for allowing me to do that.
And he did his best to hurt the party while he was blind. It was great.
And he did his best as a player, because, as I recall, in one of the shows, there was a big internet outage in LA.
Yeah. Vivka and Luke got knocked offline, and
Luke jumped in a car and drove to like a gas station a few miles from his house so that he could continue to play on his phone. That is dedication. That is certainly dedication.
That was awesome. That was really, really impressive. And it's always cool when people are passionate enough about the games that they're playing that they'll go that extra step, because it's easy to be like, oh, I don't have internet. Well, that sucks. So I thought it was super awesome that he did that. And
I mean, he would have been well within his rights to just go, I'm going to watch some television now, or do anything else. But instead, he went above and beyond.
Yeah, that was really, really great. And also, it's really fun to get to see someone like Luke play Melf in something.
Oh, I know. You don't know how thrilled I was, because I'm like a player from back in AD&D days. So actually playing with Luke as Melf, like, how does it get better than that?
It's pretty great. Every time I get to talk to Luke, he'll tell a story about something. He's like, well, Melf did this, and he'll be describing some story related to Melf. But he just says it casually. It's like, I was playing with my dad, and we were doing this thing, and I was in this dungeon and all this stuff. But like, what he really means is, like, he was play testing the Tomb of Horrors with Gary Gygax, and he was playing as this character, and he got wrecked, and he ran away. Like, so he invented the spell to work in this scenario based on this play test. And you're like, wow, in context, it's really something. But he's just talking about playing D&D with his dad. It's awesome. It's funny, actually. There is a sort of, I don't want to say assumption, but the online TRPG community and then the D&D community within it, there aren't a huge number of shows, and there's this, like, you kind of get the sense that a lot of the people in that community know each other, not just because they went to D&D Live, although you do meet a lot of them at D&D Live when there are D&D Lives. There's this kind of, and so there was a moment during one of the games where B Dave was talking to me about, we were planning out ICP, and we were, talking about all these different aspects. He's like, I don't think I've DM'd for Christina before. He's like, I've played with Christina. He's like, and I've played with Luke. And he's like talking about all this stuff. And he turns to, and he like kind of looks at me. He's like, yeah, it's just like it always is when you play with these people. I'm like, B Dave. I'm like, I don't play with these people. I'm a normal person. This is for, the people who get to play in these groups are, I don't want to say special because that seems like it's putting a different kind of label on it than I intend, but have a really strong tie to aspects of D&D in the community. You've been in, I mean, how many D&D characters have you played in BioWare RPGs at this point? BioWare and Beamdog RPGs, I should say.
Ooh, well, with the Beamdog ones especially, like I just in like Siege of Dragonspear and the enhanced editions, I played dozens of characters. Some established ones, like I got to play Cyric, the God of Murder, way back with Beamdog.
Oh, nice! I didn't know that.
It was I think Throne of Baal, or no, yeah, I did Shadows of Om first, and then got to be Cyric in Throne of Baal. And it's always amazing to get to play characters that you've read Dungeons and Dragons novels about. I was so excited when I got to play Cyric because he's like, oh, he's a named character, and of course he was immortal before he became a god. So that sort of stuff it's still always thrilling to me.
That's super cool. Yeah, that's gotta, especially. I mean, I think back to. I always relate back to the Stream of Many Eyes, and I think it's because that was the first D&D Live event that I got to participate in. And we were there and we had our Idle Champions booth in Waterdeep, and I very much remember you sitting down and starting to talk to us in character as Alveus Malcantor, and our marketing director Clive beside me just kind of being like, I don't know what to say. Like, he just kind of like, afterwards, after we'd had a discussion, and you left, he turned to me and he's like, I know how to sell, I don't know how to act. It was super funny.
I'm sorry. I hope you'll forgive me.
No, it was wonderful. It was such a great introduction.
I mean, I'm a role player and an actor and an improviser, and I've done LARP and stuff. So I'm a natural ham when it comes to that sort of thing. If you put me in and especially because we were in a recreation of Waterdeep, it was just everywhere you looked.
We're all in costume.
There's the yawning portal, and like look at the half orc butcher shop over there, and all the So I couldn't do otherwise than just have all my interactions be in character. So.
Oh, it was wonderful, and it was a great introduction. But it was also really surreal because you go over to the yawning portal and there's Ed Greenwood as Elminster just sitting there.
Oh yeah,
sitting there beside Chris Lindsay as Mert the Moneylender. And it was a wild experience.
It certainly. I mean, that was sort of my station. When we had the public come in, I got to sit in the yawning portal, basically sitting beside Ed Greenwood as Elminster and Chris as Mert, and then Trent from Beamdog was an immaculate Minsk with like Boo on his shoulder and the whole bit. So
the bald cap on. Yeah.
Oh, and a really good bald cap. Everyone thought he'd shaved his head for it. But it didn't get any better for me. Like that was just like, here I am in Waterdeep. Yeah.
I don't think it was just for you either, because I distinctly remember on one of the first days of the event, being in the green room talking to somebody, and Chris Perkins ran up to the green room and he's like, "Have you guys seen that Minsk? Whoa!" and then ran away. And Chris Lindsay's like, "Wow, I don't think I've ever seen him that excited about anything." But then Trent walked up and you're like, "Holy Trent is Minsk sized, which helps. But the costume that he had was incredible. He looked like he was wearing 60 pounds of leather.
And Trent also, he forges swords as a hobby, so he came by those muscles honestly. Yeah.
Yeah. He it seems to be all he posts now. He's like, I made these knives this week, and this other thing I made. It's like, wow.
Yeah,
all right.
here's a battle axe. You know, it's like, all right, nice, well done.
Yeah,
well done.
yeah. I'm hoping one day to get a Trent forged knife because they look pretty cool. Yeah. Oh man. Do you have who in the D&D community would you like to play with that you haven't had a chance to play with yet?
Well, I've had the great fortune of meeting Ed, as I say, and I've also subsequently, because we became friends on Facebook and whatnot, we've corresponded. I have occasionally picked his brain just on Forgotten Realms lore, where it's like, I'm writing an adventure, and what do you think of this? And he's been very gracious about responding, so that that's very thrilling for me. But I would love the chance to actually get to play a game with him. That would be outstanding.
That would be super cool. I wonder if he plays 5e or if he's only like first edition or nothing. Like,
I'm sure he's willing to play 5e. Well, I don't know. I don't want to speak for him. I'm not sure. But
Luckily,
hey, I would to get the chance to play like an AD&D game with Ed. That would be nuts. That would be so great.
That would be very cool. Yeah. The nice thing about 5e though is that you can teach somebody how to play it in like a half an hour, and
this is true.
Playing, which is not my experience having played previous editions.
Yeah, a little less user friendly perhaps, but
yeah.
I have the advantage of it's all up here. It's all up here. I actually you might find this as well. Do you find that you sort of default when it comes to rules? Do you default to the first edition of D&D that you actually learned? Like that's what's stuck in my head. So for example, like things that I intellectually know, like for example, goblins are no longer lawful evil, they're neutral evil. But if somebody asks me what alignments are goblins, I'll always go lawful evil first, because that's what's stuck in my head from the first monster manual.
I often, because 3.5 is the one I first like really deep dived into. I played AD&D and I didn't grok it particularly well at the time, and I think it was because like many people, my experience with D&D in high school was that none of us knew what we were doing, and we didn't get it. And because we didn't get it, it didn't sink in the way that it could have. Although, I mean, I never got tired of the art in the monster manual. I've probably read all of the editions through a bunch of times, even though I only really remember some of it. But whenever I think of character classes and subclasses and different things, I kind of default to 3.5, which had all of the options pretty much, because so much material got made for it. And then I'm slowly making the transition over to 5e, since that's the one I play more these days. I don't remember how to play AD&D. I don't really remember how Thaco works, or some of the other.
There was a table for it. There's a table for it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was. Oh God, yeah. I remember it being complex. I remember it being rewarding but complex. Whereas I find that, for me at least now, with just, I do find that 5e is a bit simple for me at times. But at the same time, I find that the rule set never gets in the way of me actually trying my hand at RPing a character, which is nice. Which I found before, I was often trying to remember how to do things, or trying to remember how something worked within the system, and I don't think about that anymore because of how much it's been simplified. So, yeah, but yeah, and multiple editions, of course, all fighting. Yeah.
And these days with D&D Beyond, it's just like, oh, everything is taken care of for me. I don't even have to have like my little scratch pad on the side to do all my math on.
Yeah. I don't know. It's funny. I have mixed. I in person, I don't like D&D Beyond if I'm sitting around a table with people. But in the pandemic,
obviously, yeah.
In the pandemic, when I can only play remotely, it is invaluable. Like I can't. It never ceases to be useful. But in person, I find what I do is I use it to track my spell slots and how spells work, because I can never remember the wording for stuff. So I just like, what does that spell do? Oh, okay, yeah. And then I hit the button and it says that I've used my slot. It's great.
Yes. Again, it's been a while since I've been able to sit down in person and play. But there's something about just physically rolling the dice and again, like having that little scratch pad on the side. I think I've got mine. I got a little fancy one here, little leather book with an eyeball on it, and that's what I do all my stuff in. So So even when that's available to me and I'm playing, even sometimes when I'm playing on D&D Beyond, I still use this for all like the notes of what was the name of the guy that we had to get that herb from? That kind of thing. So
absolutely.
There's something about the tactile nature of that stuff that's really satisfying.
I find I remember it better if I'm writing it down too. Like one of the campaigns I've been DMing has like every event is in here. All the characters they met, and then sometimes if it's a character I've made up, there's a description of them because I've definitely been one of those DMs who at times I can't think of a name for an NPC, and so I come up with something really bad, just dumb, and then that's the only character the players want to talk to over and over again.
That's always the way it is. That's always the way it is. So
I'm like, I've got to write some of this down. What kind of accent did they have? This, which not that I'm particularly good at accents, but it's always pretty funny. But you bring up a really good point about playing D&D with Ed Greenwood, because I think the only thing that was missing from D&D Live for me were opportunities to play D&D when you're a part of the event.
Yes, I got to play more on the second D&D Live I went to, the Descent into Avernus.
Oh, good.
Because I did a couple of the streaming games, but it was more. I guess the first one we went to felt more like LARPing than because it was all about the costumes and standing around and at our various stores and booths and inns.
And performing for the crowd that would come through, and they would circle through the space. And they would witness people getting into a fight. There was the dude who was a cleric of, I want to say, Shar. Was he the cleric of Shar? I'm trying to remember.
Those guys from the stage combat group.
They did some really awesome stunt fighting. Yeah, it was cool.
They sure did.
Yeah, and I just remember the very last one was the one where the guy took the thing from Gil and was like, "Don't f me, Gil," and everybody cheers. That was super fun. Although I did have a really weird moment where they had told us for the off the table game that Ivan Van Norman was running for B. Dave and Kate Welch and Satine and Mark Hulmes. They told all the people in all the booths, like, don't talk, like you're background dressing for this. We're like, oh, okay. And so we're sitting there and we're like, we're not talking because we're also the mics were really sensitive and they could easily pick you up, so we're just doing our best to be quiet and pretend like we're talking in the background and not really talking. And then suddenly Mark Hulmes is in my face. He's like, well, what do you think about that? And I was like, thinking to myself, I was like, hold on, they told me I didn't have to speak. And he's like trying to get info out of us. And I'm like, joke's on you, we have no info.
Actually,
super funny.
I got to be an NPC in that one with a speaking role.
Good.
A little scroll I had to give them and some information. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. It was pretty good. Luckily, Ivan was like, whoops. He's like, they didn't see anything. He's like, and then afterwards he's like, sorry about that. He's like, it didn't occur to me to give you something to talk about. I'm like, oh, they've just been so adamant that you're not going to talk that I'm like, okay, don't talk. And so when they're like, talk, I'm like, it was good. It was a good deer in headlights moments that I'm sure is probably still available on the Twitch channel somewhere.
Yeah, as I recall, the same thing happened to Trent as Minsk. And I guess you should have seen it coming, because if you go into, as your characters, you go into the yawning portal and you see Minsk sitting there at a table, you're not going to not talk to Minsk.
That's true.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're getting close to time. Is there anything you would like to chat about, shout out, etc. before we wrap things up?
Well, let's see. Well, we've certainly shouted out the Black Dice Society, which will actually be on later today, and you can find that on the official Wizards of the Coast Dungeons and Dragons YouTube and Twitch. But I'm also doing a podcast called Stitch of Fate, a podcast by night, and we recently were fortunate enough to be honored with 3 Audioverse awards, including Best New Improvised Production. And Stitch of Fate is a Vampire the Masquerade actual play podcast. I do that with Mathis Games as our storyteller, Little Red Dot, The Bubbernaut, and Gaming FTL. And yeah, we've been really enjoying that. We started shortly after all of this started, and we're currently in our second season.
Cool. That's exciting.
And you can find and you can find that pretty much anywhere you would find a podcast. It's on all major platforms, and new episodes drop every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern.
That's cool. Yeah, I was trying to think of the last time I played a World of Darkness game, and it's been a while. Yeah, is that that's using the most recent version of the rule set?
Yes, yeah, the newest Vampire the Masquerade rules. And
Cool.
In that, I play Nosferatu named Max, and he's sort of he's been described as like Oscar the Grouch, except really violent.
Max. Did you name him after the actor who played Nosferatu?
Yes, Max Schreck. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. That is my clever reference, and I'm
Cool.
sure it's never been used by anyone who's ever played a Nosferatu.
No, that's great.
But yeah, I think I'm not sure if I've indicated that, but it's probably a pseudonym. It's probably not his original name.
Oh, cool.
Mhm.
So he's messing with people by going by that name.
Yeah. Mhm.
Excellent.
Yeah, I did have a joke that he was going to call himself just Max Shrek. He was just going to call himself Shrek, but about 15 years ago, that name I couldn't use it anymore.
Yeah. It's hard to use that one and elicit, well, any response other than a troll with a sort of Scottish accent. It is always a pleasure to get to talk to you, Mark. I really appreciate you on such short notice joining me on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
And yeah, I will be sending you emails about other potential projects soon. But in the meantime, Black Dice Society, 4 p.m. today Pacific, that's 2 hours from now, you will catch Mark Meer in a game DM'd by Mr. B. Dave Walters, featuring a list of people that I don't know off the top of my head yet because I haven't had to read it out a bunch of times. But I know that Nura is on that show, Sage is on that show, Becca Scott,
Yes.
DJ Knight, Tanya DePass.
Tanya DePass. Yep.
Don't know if I'm forgetting anybody, but yeah, it's a really, really cool cast. So
And me. Oh wait, I'm on it too.
yes, and Mark Meer, and also Mark Meer and Jason Carl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, super cool. All right, Mark. Well, take care, and thanks a lot for stopping by.
Thanks so much, Dylan. Take care.
Cheers. That is, it's always fun to get to talk to Mark. I see you guys eventually got the Hidden Code. Yeah, the Hidden Code Legendary Edition. It's one of the reasons I emphasized Mass Effect Legendary Edition a few times there. It's very, very cool. Anyways, I saw a couple questions come in that weren't Mark-centric, so I didn't address them, but I will now. So apologies, these are late answers. One player in chat asked if there are any plans for the characters from Dungeon Scrollers or the Westgate Irregulars to come to the game. And I can't really comment on potential upcoming characters. I can say that we love the Dungeon Scrollers, that we have loved everything that we've had a chance to do with Aaron M. Evans, and that it's always possible. But I can't confirm or deny anything right now. And then there was another question about, is the site for fans by fans the place that you can purchase an official Idle Champions t-shirt? And yes, it is. Yeah, it's that is where you can get an Idle Champions shirt. The long story short is that there are digital licenses for D&D and there are physical licenses for D&D. We have a digital one. They have a physical one. They make the shirts. Okay. Oh, I knew this one was coming. Thanks for asking it right away, OG17. It's like, Kira is giving an E20 debuff with light setup. How will this be changed, if at all? And is Narak working as intended here? I don't know about Narak working as intended there. I do know that when it comes to Orkira and Orkira's debuffs, that it's something that we are watching closely right now. As I'm sure you are no doubt aware, and maybe not all players are aware. There have been some bugs with Orkira's debuffing so far, leading players to just tear through content. And while that has been fixed on WebGL, it also has cleared things up enough for us to take a better look at what's going on with Orkira and whether or not we need to make any changes. I can say that right now, yes, it's intended, but if it becomes problematic because Orkira is too much more powerful, then we may look at it. But I wouldn't anticipate anything happening immediately as we're looking at it. But yeah, Orkira's super good. I mean, it only makes sense that Lauren's character become that strong. That's just how it is. I mean, she's a veteran with like 5 shows experience at this point, and it's she's super, super good. Has a bug that she has been sometimes has a bug that she sometimes doesn't swap back being fixed. I can't really speak to the bug fix list or schedule or what's happening with that, because that is Sean's domain. He could probably answer that better. I see somebody in chat asking about whether or not there are going to be synergies for Orkira and Briv coming soon. I mean, I wouldn't anticipate them coming too soon. I can say that there is at least one more Hero of the Plains that will be coming to the game. And right now, given how Orkira is performing, I wouldn't anticipate us adding any additional synergies to help Orkira to perform more. Orkira is performing pretty good right now. Yeah. Let's see. Speaking of Orkira, will anything be done to buff Breath of the Phoenix, since Tailfeather seems to be just use this choice? I don't know that we have anything that we're planning to do when it comes to changes to the 2 different specializations. I mean, I'll concede that not just with Orkira, but with most champions, there tends to be a definitive best choice for most scenarios. But right now, we're happy that Orkira is there. We're happy that people like Orkira. We want people to play new characters. It's for us, we like it when we release a champion and the champion gets adopted into formations right away, as opposed to maybe taking a little bit longer to find their most ideal place in players' lineups. So right now, super happy that people are using Orkira. Yeah. So one thing I wanted to show off here. I mean, you can't really see it because of where I've been sitting and where this is, but like I have this super sweet my Terminator shirt. Some of you may know what that's from, but it's a shirt that Antoine did, and just wanted to show that off. Although I frickin' shrunk it in the laundry, so whoops. But yeah, I got my Terminator shirt, and it's funny. I just got. I was having a rough day yesterday. I have seasonal allergies that vary from mild to debilitating, and yesterday was one of those debilitating days where you wake up and you feel like you're sick because your head is pounding and your sinuses are completely clogged and you can't breathe through your nose, and then you realize after you've neti potted and you've been awake for a little bit that it's just your sinuses are that agitated from pollen that they're closing, and the throbbing migraine you have is just related to that. And so cleaning out your sinuses kind of helps, but it was a rough start to yesterday for me. But around midday, what did I find at my door? What my latest Death Saves order. Got this sweet Demogorgon shirt. They had a few shirts on sale recently. Not this one. So I picked them up, but I'm super excited about. Trevor and I both got the same shirt. It's the the Archon the Cruel shirt with the art that Max Dunbar did. I haven't even opened this yet. Pretty excited about that one. And then, of course, Lord Soth, which I think might be my most the one I'm most excited about. I wanted. One thing I realized over the course of the pandemic is that because so many of us spend so much more time in lockdown, spend so much more time at home, a side effect of that is that you don't go shopping for clothes. So, all of my, I'm like, man, people who watch me stream have seen my wardrobe several times over at this point. And it's probably in its entirety. I think there's probably still some things I haven't worn on stream, but many of my different shirts, all of my different D&D shirts, and I'm like, I need some new stuff. So I ordered some shirts there. I ordered my Black Dice Society shirt and some other shirts from online the other day, and I'm just like, all right, gonna revamp my t-shirt collection so that it's not quite so stale, so that when you go back through the highlights looking at different songs for Bardic Inspiration or something, you don't see me wearing the same shirt in half of them. So yeah. Anyways, one of the reasons I'm showing you this and this shirt is I am planning to use these as my last shirts for this show. I will be moving off of Idle Insights at the end of the month. The 29th, I think, is the last Thursday of the month, so that'll be my final Idle Insights show. I'll still be doing Bardic Inspiration. I'll still be at Codename. I'm not leaving. But I'm moving off the show and being replaced, quite frankly, by people who are better at this than I am. I can talk to cool people, but you know who works for Codename and is better at talking to people than I am? Todd Kenrick. Who also already knows all the people and is, quite frankly, better at it. I think he's got more experience doing it, and he is better at connecting with those people and engaging with them than I am. So I will be wearing these for my final episodes, but starting in the beginning of May, Idle Insights will be hosted by Todd, and Todd will be talking to people. And when it comes to the dev Q&A part, we have something else planned for that entirely that I'm not going to announce yet. But I think that people will be more excited about it because, as you no doubt have noticed, I'm a little more disconnected from some of what's happening with the bug lists and stuff like that than I used to be. Because as we are all remote, we all kind of work on our own corners of Codename and stuff now. And I just, I still play through all the content in the game, but I am not as up to speed as some of the other folks. So Idle Insights will be hosted by Todd. It will be an hour long, and then it'll be followed by an hour long of something else that will be more appropriate to players who want to ask questions about different aspects of the game, because the people who will be on that show have those answers. Anyways, will I be leaving Bardic Inspiration? No, not over my dead body. Yeah, Bardic Inspiration is mine. I will still be on Bardic Inspiration. To give all of you some context, this is not for any malicious reason. I'm not leaving Codename or anything like that. I was a 5-day a week employee, and I have moved down to a 4-day-a-week employee because I take care of my daughter on Fridays. In making that space, having 2 shows that I host is too much of my schedule to use up with all the other work that I do. So Todd is graciously willing to take on Idle Insights and will no doubt bring some really awesome insights to it, for lack of better phrasing. Todd is real good at the interviews. That sounds like I'm being sarcastic. No, Todd is great at interviews, and so we will continue to talk to all the cool people that we work with on different things, the cool people whose characters come to the game, etc. Only it will be Todd instead of me, which is great because Todd already knows them, which is pretty wonderful. So I'm excited about that. Forgive me for putting another mint in my mouth. It just helps keep my sinuses a little bit clear right now. But yeah. Todd will be taking over. We will have a new show for the second hour each Thursday afternoon. So 1 to 2 will be the interview, and then 2 to 3 will be something very player focused that I know you guys will be very, very excited about. And I'm not just saying that to build hype or to be hyperbolic or anything like that. It's something that you will like a lot. And we also have another new show starting at the end of the month that I will talk about more in a week or two instead of right now. I don't want to put unfair pressure on the people who are putting that together. We're doing a test stream, but it's something new and cool. It should be fun. And on the topic of shows, because I get asked this a lot, and I know I'll be asked it again, will there be another Idle Champions Presents? There will. Do I have any information to share on that? I do not. And it won't be something that happens in the next few months. There's a lot of lead time that needs to go into planning something like that. So, anyways, I see everybody talking about Mortal Kombat. I don't know about you, but I am super hyped for the next Mortal Kombat movie. If only because this time around they hired real martial artists to play the characters, which makes me so happy. Like, seriously. I don't know how many of you have seen the movies The Raid or The Raid 2. I know who Joe Taslim is, or you watch the I think it's on, I can't remember if it's on HBO or Showtime or what. I don't know if you've watched Warrior, which Joe Taslim is also on. Seriously awesome kung fu show, by the way, if you want to check it out. Can't recommend it enough. The Raid 2 is probably my favorite non-Man Max Fury Road action film of the last 10 years. And yes, I know that all the John Wick films came out too, and they're awesome. But The Raid 2 was like one of the most relentless action experiences I've ever had in a theater, where I was just like tired at the end of it. It was just great. Anyways, Mortal Kombat's coming. Super excited for that. What do we have for questions? One of the three Dylans mentioned on a recent stream that there wouldn't be a Year 2 champion update, but fewer champions adjusted at a time. Any idea on when we might start seeing set adjustments start to roll out? That is a great question, Garwar. And I don't have an answer for that. Because Dupuis and Justin are the only people who have insight into what that cadence will look like. They certainly haven't shared it with us yet. Or maybe they just haven't shared it with me. But either way, what I do know about it is that when we did it's been a while since we've done a full champion balance update, right? They had grown to a scale where they were taking an incredible amount of time to do. And we only have one person who is a game balance specialist who can take that on. And since we last did one, there's another 15, 16 characters that have come out in the game, and the soft cap increase has happened, and among other things. And so balance updates have become huge. So if Dupuis and Justin are going to start taking a more surgical approach to balance updates and pick, like 1 or 2 or 3 or however many, like pick a smaller number of champions at a time to do balance updates for, I think that's effing great. And I hope that they do. Yeah. Hopefully soon. Side note, how about that huge Dragonlance nod and the new Unearthed Arcana? Yeah. What's funny is earlier today I was actually watching Todd's video about the new Unearthed Arcana, because I've only had time to do a cursory glance of it. And, Todd was taking the time to parse it fully on his YouTube. It's hard to talk about Dragonborn, Dragonkin, Draconic people, etc., without having a huge nod to the most dragon-filled setting. And so I don't know if it means anything in having that in the Unearthed Arcana, but I thought it was very, very cool to see more better options for Dragonborn in 5e. And Chromatic Dragonborn man. And the metallic, it's just like, oh god, yeah, it was super super cool. And to be honest though, I'm not gonna lie, when I was going through it, the two things that excited me the most were not actually Dragonborn related. I mean, the Dragonborn stuff is awesome, but the two things that excited me the most were, one, the new or the revamped kobolds, because I like playing a kobold character. I have a kobold character that I've been sitting on waiting for the next game I get to play in, and that kobold will be just so cool for it. I don't know, super fun. And then the spells, specifically, what's the name of the spell? There it is. Sean posted it in chat. Ralathim's Psychic Lance. Damn. You know, there aren't a lot of intelligence save spells, and let alone a 4th level intelligence save spell that does 10d6 and incapacitates for a round. Incapacitates? Like, if you're higher up in the initiative order from your allies and you incapacitate the enemy, it's like, cool, the rest of your team's just gonna crit them until they're dead before the next round. Like, it's just nuts. You know. Now, granted, that's what makes it a UA. They're going to test it. Maybe it'll prove to be too good. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But 10d6 psychic and incapacitating for an intelligence save at a 4th level spell slot seems incredibly potent. Yeah. And I mean, I would let my players in the campaigns I'm DMing do it. I would just, you know, their enemies would have it too. Super good. Okay, a couple questions from Master Burglar. Will you do a guest spot on your old show from time to time? I mean, it's perfectly possible, but let me put it this way. Given the wealth of options you have for people that you could watch interviews with, because, you know, we work with many of the TRPG shows that play D&D. Obviously not the biggest one we're not doing anything with, and nobody from that's going to show up on the show, but well, probably not. But you know, we work with a lot of people in the D&D community, and we have access to a lot of people in the D&D community. Would you rather have an interview with me or with, I don't know, Jeremy Crawford? So I think, you know, I don't mind being a fill-in guest on occasion. I don't know what you would talk to me about, but you know, certainly I think, you know, if you had the opportunity to have you know, if you had the opportunity to, say, have Todd bring on Jeff Easley to talk to you about the works that he's done, or R.A. Salvatore to talk about the works that he's done, you know, that's a possibility with Todd. I think that is a little less possible with me at the helm. And why would you want to talk to me instead? Plus, I mean, I will still be on Bardic Inspiration. I mean, I'll put my audience to work. You're going to help write a song, but I will still be on Bardic Inspiration. So I don't think you're going to miss me. Will the new show be Margaret based? The new show is not planned to be Margaret based. No. Alrighty. Are there any plans to be able to get items that were giveaways that aren't available, similar to skins, like the Green Mage Hand? I don't have anything definitive to share on that. What I can say is that we have a very general rule, one that we don't follow 100% of the time, but is a sort of loose rule that we hold, in that if content was previously available for free or previously available through something that costs money, that when they become available again, it'll be through those things. So, you know, in the event that the Green Mage Hand tied to the Acquisitions Incorporated Jim Dark Magic kind of thing that we did, in the event that it becomes available again, it will most likely be through the gem shop or through some other free thing. At least that's the general idea. Oh, there it is. There's the question. Magic Rees congratulations. You are the winner of first person to ask about Critical Role this episode. I'm not making fun of you. It's just we this tends to be a question every episode. So there is nothing stopping us from working with Critical Role, and in fact, we actually have worked with Critical Role on a number of co-promotions, like a half dozen of them or so far. But when it comes to something like their characters and whether or not their characters will appear in Idle Champions, I don't know how likely that is. We would love to if we had the opportunity, but you know, they are pretty busy with their IP these days. You know, they have a cartoon series coming to Amazon and stuff, and I think isn't that due for like to be completed end of this year, although I'm sure COVID slowed it down. So like a Critical Role is very, very, very busy, and you know, we like working with them. We would love to continue to work with them, but I don't know how likely I don't know how likely it is that any of the Vox Machina or Mighty Nine characters showing up in Idle Champions as champions is ever likely to be. Yeah. And as Garwar pointed out, they just had their Munchkin game come out. I remember seeing people sharing some cool art from that, which, like, how cool of a position is it for them? I'm super happy for them. It was, I gotta say, like, as just a member of the D&D community, I was elated when they had their Kickstarter, you know, and they were communicating about how much they had tried to shop around their IP as something that they could turn into a show and got turned down, and then their fans made that a show a reality inside the hour of them putting it on Kickstarter, and answered not just with, yes, we'd like to see you make these 3 shows, but answered instead with, we want you to make full seasons of the show, like we want it all. Like, you know, it was a pretty overwhelmingly awesome thing to see happen, and I'm very, very excited to see it, because I don't know how many of you watch animated shows, watch shows that Titmouse has done. I'm pretty sure they did the Legend of Korra, the second Avatar series. I think they did, and the animation in that was awesome, just awesome. And personally, I like Legend of Korra more than I like The Last Airbender. I know that's blasphemous to so many people, but I think Korra dealt with harder things to deal with than Aang did. Sorry. Like, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think they're both incredible works of art, and both brilliant shows. I've rewatched both of them all the way through recently. I think maybe even more than once over the course of the pandemic, because they're so good. But having just gone through both of them again, I think I like Legend of Korra more. It's yeah. Can't wait for people to tell me why I'm wrong, but I like it more. Yeah. Well, Babylon Ranger, so here's the thing. I'm not gonna minimize the struggle. Certainly not gonna minimize a topic like that. But Aang had a journey to make, and it was a very difficult journey, and it was filled with challenges over the course of it. But none of it was personal in the way that everything that Korra had to deal with was. Aang never had the avatar ripped out of him. Aang never had his bending taken away. Aang never had, you know, master bending assassins kidnap him and fill him with poison, trying to kill him off. And Aang didn't, like, the scope of the things that Korra dealt with and the trauma inflicted on her and what she had to live through and fight through, which was just very different from what Aang had to deal with on The Last Airbender. And yeah, I liked Korra's show better. Now that being said, my favorite characters are on the first one. Like Iroh and Toph are my favorite characters, and yes, Toph is in the second series as well, limited to a limited extent. But Iroh and Toph are great. So yeah, it's one of those things where I just think that the journey and the pain from the journey was harder on Korra, whereas you know. What are your thoughts, if any, on the Dragon Prince? There are things I really like about Dragon Prince. Although I have to admit I found it really weird. I did find it really weird to hear Sokka's voice again, so distinctly sounding like Sokka. I just found that distracting. But I quite liked the Dragon Prince. I thought it was a lot of fun. It did feel like the last season that they did was really rushed, considering the pace of the first seasons. I don't know why. I thought the animation choice they made for the first season, where they like deliberately limited the number of frames, was distracting, and I'm glad they addressed it. I haven't watched it enough times to really settle on it the way that I did with Avatar. Or with the different Avatar series, I guess. But I mean, I thought it was good and I enjoyed it. I was blown away by a couple of the characters. I have to look up their names. Because I haven't watched. I binged each season of the Dragon Prince when it came out, so it's been like a couple of years now since I saw the last season of it. What is her name? The General Amaya. Awesome character. A deaf general. What a inspired character, especially one that whose only weapon is a shield. And I loved. There's a lot of little things in the series that I really loved too, but none of it connected with me as strongly as either of the Avatar series. So yeah. Let's see. Aang had to deal with self-doubt and guilt over the loss of the air nomads and conflict of beliefs to kill the Fire Lord or not kill the Fire. No, and I thought that was good, and I thought that it was especially resonated strongly when Aang, meditated on and to reach out to previous incarnations of the Avatar, and they all told him to kill the Fire Lord, and he rejected it because I thought that was great. But Aang isn't the only one who was told what to do or given advice on what to do, that they ended up having to go their own way. I think the brutality of Korra's journey, even if she's not dealing with mass genocide, just kick off her series because her people have been wiped out, but her people do get conquered and subjugated by their neighbors essentially over the course of it. But let's get around that part. I think how deeply personal and traumatizing each one of the things that she has to face is really interesting, and I thought it was a more mature and interesting kind of you see how it affects her more. Aang's conflict about whether or not to kill the Fire Lord is kind of there throughout the background. If I was going to compare character journeys and say which one was better, I'd compare Zuko's journey to Korra's journey, because Zuko went through a real journey over the course of the original Avatar series. Aang, less so. He doesn't seem hugely different at the end of the series that he did from the beginning. Yeah. Also, side note, how badass is Katara in that Azula is super dangerous and scary and mops the floor with people, including Aang, but both times that Azula fights Katara, she gets wrecked by Katara. It was awesome. Anyways, I actually thought the end of the Fire Lord was a bit of a cop-out. He ended up not having to sacrifice or make a hard choice. Maybe if they had introduced the idea of taking someone's bending earlier, I'd feel differently. I don't feel like it was a cop-out. I think it was doing everything you could to search for another way to resolve a conflict that didn't result in violence, which I think makes sense for an air nomad. Whereas, but yeah, I'll agree. They didn't ever indicate that could be a thing until that point. So it's just kind of, it felt a little convenient, I guess. Anyways, let's see. we had a question here. What would your dream D&D setting or campaign? What would be your dream D&D setting or campaign to put into Idle Champions? Oh man, into Idle Champions? That's a really tough question. What would be my dream D&D setting or campaign to put into Idle Champions? I mean, I'm a huge fan of Planescape. I'm a huge fan of Sigil and all of everything that kind of ties the City of Doors to the rest of the D&D multiverse. And I think that would be a really cool thing to have in the game someday. I mean, you know, we focus pretty exclusively on what is in 5e or what is published in 5e. So, you know, aside from a handful of outliers, because we have characters that are based on things from the Eberron setting, although there is an Eberron 5e book, we tend to focus first and foremost on things that are published in 5e. So that you know, I mean, it's Idle Champions is Forgotten Realms, and it has kept us very Sword Coast centric. And you know, the next campaign that will be coming to the game will be whatever D&D announces next will be the next campaign. But if I could throw something into the game that Dylan wanted, you know, throwing in Sigil and the Lady of Pain and all the Planescape stuff, and tying it into, you know, just basically opening the door to all planes, I think would be super cool. You know, and then also, you know, I'm also just eagerly awaiting a 5e Dark Sun campaign book. Let's see. Is there any plan to make Ultimates / 6th slot gear relevant to game? Yeah, I mean, it's only relevant to a point, right? It's item level 500, 502 or something that it ceases to be able to give you cooldown reduction for your thing. What can I say about that? I could say that it is something that is on our lists, even though I know it doesn't feel like it's on our lists. That is something that has been juggled around our priorities lists for quite some time, and that's where it still is. That's a good question to bring up with Chris Dupuis and Justin when they are on streams, since that is entirely in their wheelhouse. Anyways, I ran out of questions, so I'm going back to Mike Baldy, late to join. Has anyone asked about Orkira's debuff scaling over E20% being intended? Is Narak supposed to apply to each stack, thus applying 20 times in some cases? I can't speak to the what Narak is providing to Orkira's buffs, Mike Baldy, but I can say that when it comes to Orkira's unbelievably potent debuffing potential right now, that it's something that we're watching closely. Yeah, we're keeping an eye on it. Don't mind me getting those shinies after you are already at 501 sure hurts. Yeah, I hear you. You know, when the question was first posed about what to do with ultimate equipment cards when, you know, people reach their cooldown cap, when that question was first posed, nobody was anywhere near that cap, whereas now a significant percentage of players, I suspect, would be at that point and wondering, you know, what's the point of getting item levels in the slots, especially when you're using either a potion of polish and it lands there, or a blacksmith. Well, no, not blacksmith contract. Well, yeah, blacksmith contracts, and they land on those slots. So, and then. Yeah, as Garwar is pointing out, it's not just slot 6 items that sometimes cap out at this point. So, you know, I'm not sure what our plan is, because it's not something that would be my thing to work on. That's something that you definitely have to ask Justin or Chris Dupuis about. Let's see. Anywho, back to Avatar. It's I mean, one, Avatar: The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra are absolutely brilliant animated series, and I recommend that every single person everywhere watch them because they're fantastic. They do a lot of great things when it comes to things that you don't typically see in animation or in television or film. There's lots of strong female characters. There's lots of diversity. There's, lots of creativity. I think they're absolutely brilliant. I just, rewatching the series and watching the journeys that the characters go on, and I don't know. I still think that Aang's journey isn't as difficult as Korra's journey. Well, that's relative. I think that I don't know that it's as traumatic. All the trauma that happens to Aang has already happened by the end of the pilot episode, whereas Korra is constantly having new and more horrific, traumatic things happening to her over the course of the series, and like the entire fourth season is about her dealing with them, and how she can't even succeed at being an avatar while she's still got all this baggage that she's carrying with her. Plus, lava bending and all the other stuff that they've done in. I love that things that were either less usage as bending or more unique and rare in the Last Airbender have turned into like common things that are a part of society in Korra, like from the firebenders powering their power plants with lightning to to metal bending cops to lava bending and all the other stuff. I thought it was super cool to get to see the evolution. And part of me hopes that they get to do another animated series that takes place even further after, but I don't know. It really depends on whether or not they have more stories to tell. Do I like the Dragon Princess much? No. It was good. It was fun. I recommend the watch. I enjoyed it, but it was, Aang shows how one deals with past trauma, and Korra shows how one deals with ongoing societal chaos and personal trauma. Yeah, that would be a good comparison. Yeah. I agree. It's funny actually. I was just talking about how Toph and Iroh are my favorite characters from the original series, and who are the ones that make an appearance again in Korra, but Toph and Iroh. Fun fact: did anybody else notice that you never find out who fathered Toph's daughters, but it was clearly two different people. But that one of her daughters' kids has a striking resemblance to Sokka. I thought that was interesting. Anywho, what else are you guys watching lately? Because I gotta say, the only thing I'm watching right now are Falcon the Winter Soldier and Invincible. Mystica, notice that? Okay, good. Yeah. Sue's son looks like a carbon copy of Sokka, and when you look at Toph and Sokka, Sue looks like she could be theirs. But it's even more interesting because Lin doesn't look like him at all. And I get a kick out of the fact that that Toph doesn't really care who her kids' parents are. Like, she had some daughters, and that was that. It's so Toph. It was great. You binged through Gotham the other week. Oh man, I had a hard time watching Gotham. It like flew so radically in the face of everything I know to be Batman from everything that I've just like digested through reading and watching over the last how many decades, that Gotham felt so blasphemous to me. But kudos to them for just going all in. It was that show seemed weird and crazy to me. I couldn't get into it. Yeah. Sokka wouldn't survive a night with Toph. Well, so there's some moments towards the end of the last Airbender series where Sokka and Toph are together that makes me think that she really liked them. So I don't know. Manifest and Superman and Lois. I watched the pilot of Superman and Lois and I thought it was phenomenal. I haven't gotten around to watching any more of it yet, but I was actually really, really, really impressed with how good it was. It was a hopeful Superman, but also a Superman who has to deal with struggling to be a parent and be available for his family. I don't know. I thought it was great. I don't know what Manifest is, though. What's Manifest? to look that up. It's a drama. Oh, excuse me, supernatural drama TV series. Centers on the passengers and crew of a commercial airliner who suddenly reappear after being presumed dead for more than 5 years. Okay, so it's like the 4400? Third season of it apparently just started. Mayans, Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, Solar Opposites. How is Solar Opposites? I enjoyed a lot of Justin Roiland's Rick and Morty, but I can't say that his type of humor appealed to me so much that I thought about giving his other shows a try. Manifest is kind of like Lost. Yeah, Lost. Oh man, I have such a love-hate relationship with that show. For those who don't know, I'm Hawaiian, and so for me, Lost was always getting to watch people hang out on Kauai. But the central idea of the series, the narrative, was such a mess for so long on it. You know, like it had such a good premise from the get-go, and then it just kind of like meandered for years, and then like kind of sort of wrapped up in an okay-ish way. I don't know. I had pretty mixed feelings about Lost, but there was some brilliant stuff early on. Yeah. The Expanse. The Expanse is probably my favorite ongoing science fiction television show, period. And one of my favorite shows that has been on in the last decade or two. It is of such a phenomenal quality and so incredibly true to the books and so well cast. Yeah, I have no complaints about The Expanse. Except that like I wish it had more money and that I knew that they were going to complete the entire series, because it sounds like Amazon is only willing to pay for through the end of season 6, which would be wrapping up the middle arc of the books and completely cutting off before the final trilogy. So I don't know how I feel about that. Seriously, they had no story. They just made it up as they went along. So, see, now I know that you're referring to Lost. And that's kind of true. So when that show started, J.J. Abrams created a series Bible for it. And apparently one of the big points of contention between him and the creative team that took over the show and continued with it through the end was that they threw his series Bible out and just did kind of whatever. And I know in some ways it was a victim of its own success in that it was so popular so quickly, and it not only that, it had grabbed very desired TV demographics, that the studio was like, yo, we need more of these things, and like, you know, manipulated the production as well, because they wanted it to be something it wasn't, because it was appealing to a group of people and they thought that would keep people watching. So, you know, that happens. Orville was delayed. So I was late to the Orville party. One of my coworkers, David, was a huge fan of it and like recommended it because he said it was like watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, but without it being Star Trek. And I watched the pilot episode and it didn't hook me. I watched it and I was like, I don't really like this. But later on, I gave it a chance, because over the course of the pandemic, I gave a lot of shows a chance that I didn't watch before. It was all right. Yeah, I thought the second season was much stronger than the first. I thought once they got past the more childish crap in the earlier episodes, which I'm sure is what Seth MacFarlane had to do in order to sell the studio on him doing it. It was like, we'll make it funny the way that I make my other shows funny. I thought once they got past that stuff and they started to get more into the actual interesting sci-fi concepts or, you know, philosophical debates about different topics, that it became a much more interesting show, if a bit predictable. And yeah, season 2 was pretty great. Let's see. Hopefully Manifest doesn't do the same thing. Yeah. Still waiting for season 2 of Another Life and season 3 of Lost in Space. I haven't watched Another Life, though I did watch the first 2 seasons of Lost in Space on Netflix, and I enjoy it, even if it feels nothing like Lost in Space. I think the cast is great for that show. Yeah, I look forward to whatever they do. They said that they were committing to a 3rd season that will also wrap it up, so I hope so. I do know that in the world of television, whenever something's popular, there's a tendency to keep that show going past its prime rather than let it wrap up on a narrative high. You know, I'm looking at you, Supernatural. So hopefully that doesn't happen to any of the shows that we're watching that we like, because as much as you always want more of a good thing, I like it's so much better when they wrap out. What about Star Trek Discovery, 3 seasons out? I love it. I thought the first season was a bit hit and miss. I thought season 2 was great and season 3 was great, and I'm very excited for season 4. I think they might be wrapping it up. We'll see. I mean, it's hard to know how far they want to take the concept, given that once you start writing the future of a show, it makes it harder to be interested in the past of it, right? So we'll see with Discovery. I got worried when I saw Katie in The Mandalorian, but it was still confirmed while that was airing. Yeah, Mandalorian is... I mean, I really, really enjoyed it. Season 2 felt really fan servicey. Not that that's a bad thing, because I think making your fans happy is a good thing sometimes, as long as it's not costing your show to do it. So, you know, was I happy to see Ahsoka Tano in live action? Hell yes, I was. Was it everything I hoped it would be? Yeah, it was. It was great. There was even a sweet samurai-style duel, while there was a Western-style duel outside in that episode. Like, no complaints there. I mean, think about all the great things that we got to get in that season of Mandalorian. You know, some of which are things that none of us ever thought we would ever see out of Star Wars. So, I was very happy with it. And I hope that, you know, Favreau and Filoni continue to display good leadership with the television Star Wars shows. Because when they announced like 10 shows, that made me worried. Because, you know, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to feature films, Disney is 1.5 out of 5. 1.5 for 5 in terms of successful stories. You know, I thought Rogue One was brilliant, and there were parts of Solo I quite enjoyed, and there were parts of The Force Awakens I enjoyed, but honestly, didn't like any of the rest. Not really happy with what they did with them. But Favreau and Filoni have been killing it with everything that they've done related to Star Wars so far. So, cross your fingers. Also, how they kept the season 2 finale a secret, I have no idea. I have no idea how they kept that a secret. That is impressive. Yeah. Don't worry, Darth Shee. I'm not going to spoil Mandalorian. Yeah. The 3 new movies were so bad it made others suffer. Herkwork, yeah. One of the interesting things that has come up in discussion about it, because B-Dive and I talk about Star Wars all the time, is that you know, there was a time when the prequel trilogy was considered the worst thing that ever happened to Star Wars. And we have lived long enough now that the prequel trilogy is not the worst thing that's happened to Star Wars. The sequel trilogy is. What's been interesting is how the prequel trilogy was kind of underwhelming. But you look at it a bit differently now because Clone Wars and Rebels have come out, and Dave Filoni has fixed most of the things that either needed more context or that didn't quite work in the prequel trilogy have been addressed through the content that Filoni has worked on for both Rebels and Clone Wars. And you kind of look at them a bit differently now because so much work has been done to make those stories better. And you kind of wonder, well, is he gonna fix the other stuff that they've done? So I don't know. We'll see. Jar Jar is the worst thing. No, Jar Jar is not the worst thing anymore. Also, like, lay off Jar Jar. I mean, yeah, he's an intentionally obnoxious character, but you know what? I feel so bad for that actor whose like big Star Wars break was being a character that people hate and that they've never stopped crapping on him for. Like, oh man. Yeah. Clone Wars certainly made episode 3 into my hands down favorite of them all. Absolutely, but I mean the last 4 episodes of Clone Wars did a better job of giving you an emotional hit to the events in episode 3 than anything that was in the film did, right? But you had the benefit of going on that journey with those characters on 7 seasons leading into it. Like that extra context really makes it. What destroyed Star Wars for you? I'm not going to say that Star Wars was destroyed, because it wasn't. I just didn't like the newer ones. I think that they rushed out a new trilogy without thinking through thoroughly what they wanted to do with the new trilogy. And, they attached some great talent to it. They hired some great actors to be a part of it. But I don't think they did anything interesting with it. Or rather, I thought they might maybe in some ways tried to do some interesting things, and then they retconned it because of fan backlash. I thought 7, 8, 9 were just a mess, just a total mess. With the last one being the worst one. But that was me. Lots of people enjoyed it, so don't harp on people for enjoying things. Like if somebody enjoyed something, good for them. They enjoyed it. I just didn't really care for what they decided to do with it. Whereas when I watched Rogue One, that was one of the best Star Wars theater experiences I've ever had. It was awesome all the way through. So, yeah. OG17 question. Oh my god, it's a game related question. I will happily talk about the game. Could the weekend event banner screen get a panel showing the weekend golden epic? It's easy to overlook and you need to actively look in the store. That is a phenomenal suggestion that I am going to make a note about and pass along immediately after this, because I agree wholeheartedly, especially given that the golden epic is usually the reason you would participate in a weekend thing. So also Matt Lanter greater than Hayden Christensen because he can actually act. Hayden Christensen can act, he just didn't really act in Star Wars. I don't blame Hayden for that. Ultimately it's up to the director and the writer and the director to pull a performance out of the person that they hired for that role. Like Hayden was in a very visible role to be hammy and get crapped on for his performance. But like, I don't think his dialogue was good in the prequel trilogy. I don't think Natalie Portman's dialogue was particularly good in the prequel trilogy. I think pretty much everybody other than the Emperor had bad dialogue in the prequel trilogy. And like, you should watch some of the other stuff that Hayden Christensen's been in. He is a good actor. He just wasn't good in Star Wars. It happens. Yeah. Successful things could still be bad. Take cigarettes. Well, cigarettes have chemicals in them that make them chemically addictive. But yeah. I have never seen him act convincingly in any role except when he was acting like a selfish jerk. See, I think it's up to the relationships I think it's up to what you have on set, and when it's up to the director to pull a performance out of somebody, and if they see potential in somebody, they do. I don't know how George Lucas did any of that stuff, but like a good example would be you watch either like a Tarantino film or a James Gunn film where they take people. They take actors that are not known for different things and they put them in roles that they excel in. It's about, they gotta pull that performance out of somebody. I just don't think that a good performance was pulled out of Hayden Christensen. But you know what? For the Obi-Wan series, which we are so lucky to have existing, with Ewan McGregor coming back, oh my god. I'm trying to remember the director, the showrunner's name is. I want to say her name's Deborah Chow, but I need to double check it. because I think it's Deborah Chow. Yeah, Deborah Chow. So Deborah Chow did some of the better episodes of The Mandalorian, I think. Absolutely killed it. Deborah Chow is a good director. I have every faith that Deborah Chow will pull good performances out of Ewan McGregor, who's a phenomenal actor, and of course you can pull a good performance out of him, but also out of Hayden Christensen. Like I suspect we may be surprised, and if we're not, I am happy to eat my words. But yeah, I would like to maintain that Hayden Christensen is a solid actor. He just wasn't a good actor. He didn't have a good performance in Star Wars. That's okay. Lots of people didn't have good performances in Star Wars. It's Star Wars, not Shakespeare. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, we're 2 hours in, which means you know what time it is. It's time to wrap things up. So, first things first, I would like to give a huge shout out and thanks to Sasha for co-producing, moderating, for putting up with my meandering, grabbing questions when he could. And I'd also like to thank our partners at D&D for hosting us on the official D&D Twitch. This has been our show for Thursday, April 15th, 2021. Huge thanks to Mark Meer for joining me today to talk about Mass Effect and Black Dice Society and D&D and nerdy things. And yeah, I hope you all take care. Looking forward to tomorrow's Griddle Champions. I am going to put together and send some art to Lee and Sean right after this so that they can do tomorrow's show. So take care, everybody, and yeah, we'll see you soon. Cheers.